Hey there, this is Alex with Gray Area. Welcome to our series Spotlight, where our mission is to build a bigger and more united house music community by sharing new and exciting artists, festivals, and event brands with you. In this interview, you hear from SWAYLO. His music marries the best of bass forward house and techno with the rhythmic sensibility he's acquired from his rich cultural background and world travels. We'll talk about how he's infused the ideas of manifestation, interconnection, peace, and positivity into his music. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more of interviews just like this. Or do you still paint?
Yeah, I do. Not as much, but here and there.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Was that before or during EDM?
That was, let's see, that was kind of before. I used to make hip hop more, like just hip hop beats and trap beats and stuff like that. I never released it.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started really getting into like beat production.
Interesting. I feel like a lot of people start there. It's kind of like a natural place to like get your feet wet with making
That's
beats.
true. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
how'd you make the transition into house music?
Well, so I was like kind of frustrated because I never like could get like I didn't know what to do with the hip hop beats. I wasn't living in Atlanta where I
Right.
could get in the studio, and I'd send music around, but it's just not the same. You need to be in the room with like the rappers, and so yeah, I kind of got frustrated, and then around that time I moved to Austin. I started working for a big music promotion company, C3
Right.
Presents,
Right.
and I kind of fell out of like the artistry or like the production because I was so hyper focused on like the booking and the industry side of things. So yeah, it was like a couple of years, and then I actually went through like a pretty hard breakup, like heartbreak, and I was doing. I grew up in New Mexico, doing like sort of some ceremony, and it had been a while, and I actually was doing this ceremony like with um, some plant medicine, and like one of the visions or kind of like things that really came to me during that was like just to get back to my music, and it was like this little jaguar creature came walking down from the cosmos and like whispered in my ear like you know like this story and like this character like SWAYLO, which I had thrown parties that I named like lounge sway. It was like
Yeah.
a lounge vibe and kind of like sway vibes, but not like, you know, too crazy, but still a party, but you can have a conversation. That was kind of the vibe.
Right.
And um and so like but the SWAYLO thing came to me in that moment, like from this kind of character from like this psychedelic experience. And um like yeah, I was really inspired after that, and it was rooted in like a dance, which I guess I had always been inspired by trance and like tribal drumming,
Right.
and it kind of yeah, like that tribal drumming is similar in a lot of ways to like dance music. It's a dance beat, so that's really what got me into it.
Absolutely. That's super fascinating. That not just like kind of that journey from like making beats to like being on the industry side of things and like back into
Yeah,
like making music, but also like
yeah.
how you discovered how that's supposed to happen, because I feel like there's an essence of that in the music that you make, and there's also like an
Mhm.
essence of that in like the messaging that's behind your music, because you talk a lot about like
Mhm.
manifestation, and you talk a lot about there's a lot of
Mhm.
positive messaging and connection and peace and positivity, um and that kind of ritual idea is really infused in your music. How
Mhm.
did you start to make that a part of your music?
Um, yeah, I think everything I do, I try to hold some element of ritual,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's even like the most mundane of things or just like work. I do try to think about it as like a ritual and intentional time and space, and just really trying to root and being present in whatever I'm doing. It's
Right.
not easy, and I fall out of that often, but just kind of coming back to that constantly. So I'd say that on a broad picture, but yeah, music is like fundamentally I feel like connected to this like invisible world or the spirited world.
Right.
And I find like so much connection in the heartbeat. Like that's like the root of music for me, is like it's the heartbeat, or kind of like this lifeline, like, you know, like a lifeline, right? And when they put the medical stuff on you and they're like, is that what it's called, the lifeline or something?
EKG,
The
I think.
EKG, right?
Yeah.
And it's like this wavelength, and that is essentially like wavelengths that relate to like sound waves, and like it's music, and it's kind of like the base of like house or like any kind of like dance beat again. So I think like the ritual of just like being alive and gratitude for like being present in the moment and being in life, and how that like connects with music, and like creating music that essentially pays tribute to that moment and that experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, so much about dance music is about like kind of reverting ourselves back to that tribal idea. Like there's so much community involved, but there's also just that constant thump is like is
Mm-hmm.
like a is like a heartbeat. It's like the
Yeah.
most primal
Yeah.
thing that we can feel. Um
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
You also draw on like a really unique cultural background. Can you talk about that for a second? Like how you grew up, because your parents both come from really different places, and I feel like you grew up
Yeah.
with like a unique
Mm,
childhood.
definitely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's like people ask like, your mom's from South Africa, your father's from Switzerland. Like, how the hell did you grow up in Zuni, New Mexico? Like, or
Yeah.
how are you born there? And it's like, I mean, really, like there is like, I can get into the stories of like how it came to be, but it's like essentially it's like it is like a reminder of like fate. Like we are we are right where we are because of something greater. Like this like fate kind of brought me to coming into the universe in this like particular space, which is super specific and particular.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that like I think that's like my first answer. But also just yeah, like a very kind of, my family was very um, global and kind of culturally diverse in a lot of ways. Like I'm a byproduct of a kind of a few different um, cultures and races um, and then like growing up in like different spaces like that. So yeah, it's really interesting where we come into this world. And like Zuni is like absolutely a portal, and the people actually call themselves the sky people.
Hmm.
And like a lot of their mythology is that they came to be coming down from like the webbing, spider webbing, grandmother spider, and coming down from the cosmos to this particular place called Zuni Pueblo. So in a way, I can connect to that also, being born there and like kind of growing up with a lot of my great friends being Zuni. I also relate to that as well. So, yeah.
That's such a like rich background to draw from, especially when you're creating music. Because I feel like not just do you have like a lot of cultural influence, but you have a lot of like different sounds that influence you too, and they really do make their way into your music, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it was very, very inspiring, like hearing the like tribal drumming of Zuni, and like the drum beats and rattling, and those are absolutely like fundamentally inspiring to me, and connect very much to like the African connection. Like my mother being from South Africa, and then I spent a couple years in Southern Africa in Joburg itself in South Africa, and then I went up to Mozambique
Oh,
for a few
wow.
months, and I was up in Malawi actually for almost a year up on the lake there, and studied music with some locals, and just hearing a lot of the music, it was like so mind blowing to see that symmetry or that parallel between those two worlds, and similar drumming and similar beat and rhythm really blew my mind.
I bet. Did you bring back anything interesting from that trip? Both like actual things, like did you get a hold of any like drums there? And also what else did you bring back from that trip, that's less tangible?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question, man. Um, I had the privilege of meeting this incredible human. His name was Rasta Kelvin, and he kind of took me in. And he had this little shop slash restaurant slash kind of community center up on the top of this hill on the lake. And he welcomed me and he homed me. He put me in charge of being his security guard. So I would sleep in there, and in his like open restaurant, like no walls, just like, so I'd put a mat down and sleep in there every night. And the first like week or two, I'm like, how in the world is he putting me in charge of securing his space? If something happens, I am not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
And I was actually terrified. So, but he didn't live far, and anyways, he taught me so much about cooking, about painting, about carving, like all these crafts. He was just an incredibly skilled artisan and multifaceted artist. And yeah, it's just like so incredible, like one of the best mentors in my life, like to spend time with him and just learn about, it really kind of comes back to that, like being present in doing and being, and not like trying to get somewhere, but being right there in the moment and creating and letting it come through, like letting the source of the energy come through us. And that's essentially, that creative process. So that was really amazing. And I was able to bring that back. That's kind of the intangible. And then tangibly, I worked on like 5 or 6 drums. I actually made, like, carved out of wood, and it was hot, dude. It was like super hot. And I started on softwood, but by like the 3rd drum, I was on this like hard African wood, and it was like swelteringly hot. And I'm like sitting there banging like a hammer on like a chiseling the wood, and just like sweating and like feeling like all this energy, like kind of stories coming through me while I'm doing that. Like, so that was incredible. And then like traveling back with those was a real trip. Like, especially from that country, Malawi, down to South Africa.
Right.
I took a bus, and they actually pulled us over, like the police pulled us over in Zimbabwe, and like they were going through checking everything. They pulled the drums out, and they like were searching the drums, and they're like, whose are these? And they brought me off the bus, and I was like, oh shit, like what's going on? And they were like looking in the drums, and I was convinced that they were gonna like plant some kind of like some drugs in the drums,
right?
Because I had heard stories about like people smuggling drugs in drums, and I was like, oh shit, this is where I go down. And like I think they were considering it, like it was this standoff moment where I was looking at them and they were looking at me, and we were just like, I was like, in my head, I'm like, I have solidarity. I'm strong. I'm powerful. You just saying like a mantra and a prayer. Right. And they actually let me go, but I was convinced that they were gonna just, take me down or like really like mess with me, and it was pretty scary. So it was a lot to like carry that like energy, and those drums are powerful. And then I ended up shipping them from South Africa back to America, and it took like 3 or 4 months till I got the drums after I had returned.
What like an amazing gift, not just like the gift of friendship that you got from that, but like the gift of like these awesome instruments that you can then like carry forward into your music. And I know you use a lot of like world instruments in your music. Have you used those drums in anything recently?
Definitely in the first EP that I put out, they're in those songs, which I put out in like the beginning of 2019. Right. I started releasing SWAYLO, and those were like in the first 3 or 4 songs, absolutely present. But I actually haven't brought them in, and thank you for bringing this up, because I'll bring some in.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that again. I'd love to. That's great, because you have such this like worldly sound. It would be great to like just know when I hear it, that those are that those drums I'm hearing, I'm like, oh yeah, those went through hell to get here.
And you're so right. So much of it is like energetic, like aura, a transfer of like energy that,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
And I want to talk about that for a second, that transfer of energy and that idea of intention and mindfulness. Why do you think they're so important to dance music?
Man, good question. I think that music is the fastest way to drop into a spirited world, or like, you know, to connect back to source. Like, you know, you can be in a room and you can be watching something and it can be very powerful. Absolutely. Like watching a visual or smelling something, it can drop you in as well. But music, I think, takes you deeper, faster, and further. Like, it's just a really powerful way to like get to source. And so I think that, like, therefore it because it's so powerful, like the sensitivity to what the intention is behind the music really matters. And yeah, like, I think oftentimes we disregard, there's so much sound everywhere, we're kind of like overwhelmed in sounds. And I think, yeah, we forget sometimes how impactful it is. And it's just like, it can go both ways. It can be very uplifting or it can be very chaotic. A lot of EDM, you know, straight up, I listen to Skrillex and I'm like, what's going on? Like, is there a demonic like intention here? Or is it, you know, is there like, is he trying to create chaos and trying to like fragment people's, you know, it's like a cellular
Right.
molecular like level, like where the wavelengths of sound, especially at a festival on a big sound system, that those wavelengths coming off those big sound systems and hitting us, you know, we're beings of water and molecules, and those wavelengths hitting us creates like a specific kind of reaction in our body. And so yeah, a lot of music I find can be very chaotic and challenging and upsetting in a lot of ways. And so, you know, in my music, it's not all light and positive and like bright, but there is some darkness, there is some heaviness, like sadness, like stories of, you know, affliction and pain. And but it's really, at the end of the day, I try to always root the intention of my music to be a light in the dark, and
Yeah.
you know, to be hopeful and to be like resilient, like we are resilient. And so sometimes it'll be like the song will be a battle, it'll be a chaotic kind of wrestle or battle, but it's always to try to, at the end of it, come through, you know, hand in hand or arm in arm, united with one another and with ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so well said.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
yeah, I can hear, especially in the last like group of releases that you did, I could hear that back and forth. Um, and it's really remarkable that you're so intentional with your music. Um, especially in a world where I feel like a lot of people are just kind of going through the motions, or maybe they're just releasing stuff. It's great to release stuff for fun, but it's also nice to hear that somebody is really thinking about like the emotional impact what their music is going to have on the dance floor.
Yeah,
Because dancing is quite emotional.
yeah,
Um,
truly.
when when you first started, you know, getting into dance music, you know, how can you think about times when you felt like emotionally impacted by the music?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's one of my favorite experience in the whole world is when I'm in a dance space, an intentional dance space, and I get goosebumps. Right? Like, a lot of us know this experience. Not everybody, and I wish that everybody can have it. But it's so magnificent to be, and it really comes from this like range of a high and a low, and like being moved, you know, like by the sound, literally. And like going back to that kind of cellular level of like our body is like, there's a fusion and sort of a process where we're blending with these wavelengths and this intention of like, and that's why in a lot of ways, like a DJ is not just somebody who's a DJ up there like making a party, but they're really kind of like a leader in spirit and taking people on a journey. And so yeah, just it's fun to think about it that way.
It
And
is. DJs are almost like shamans.
exactly.
I mean, and channeling other producers'
Mm,
music through themselves to create an emotional
mm,
experience. I think that's like,
mm-hmm.
a really fascinating experience because, you talk about ritual and like dancing is a ritual and so is DJing. Like leading the
Yeah,
dance floor is also a ritual. It's probably
totally.
why people consider, house music church.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but there's absolutely moments like ecstatic moments where like yeah, like you're saying, it's like church and it's like this connection to God or to something so much greater, like to beyond us. And then there's moments of like, longing and connection, heartbreak, and what it feels like, to connect and relate to other people through music in that way. And then there's just like such resilience, like moments of like being on the dance floor and it's like you're dancing and you're putting all this energy into it, and it's tiring, but you're high from it. You have endorphins going, and there's like these low moments, and then there's these victorious moments where you're like, we did it, we made it, and you're on the dance floor with all these people, and it's like ecstatic. So yeah,
I
it's
feel it.
awesome, the motion.
I think we may be in one of those ecstatic moments right now. What have you like enjoyed as like the world has started to open back up?
Yeah, like enjoyed the dance floor being this like super powerful sacred container of like diversity, humans like in a safe space, humans coming together and literally like blending together, merging, like sweating, like we're like uniting in such an intimate and powerful way. It's like almost like, without being perverse or like, take it there, it's like an orgy in the most innocent way, like not a like sexual penetrating weird way, but like
Right.
this like awesome like connection of humans coming together and like being one. So yeah, that's like the most inspiring for me, and that's why like I make music, why I also like want to be in the industry side of it and like work really hard to, because it's a grind to be a talent buyer and a booker. It's like
Yeah.
you're sitting there calling, emailing, negotiating, fighting to like get shows, and it's like I'm like, why am I doing this? Like if I'm doing all this, like I should be on Wall Street, I could be making 10x, absolutely, but I do this because of the purpose of like uniting, like, and creating a safe space to offer music and bring people together. It's like connection.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that for a second too, because like the other side of your career is you working fully on the industry side of things. Like you're a talent buyer, you're talking to people, you really understand the business side of things. How do you feel like that's helped you as a musician and like helped you like further your career and get to the place where you want to be?
Yeah, it's both a blessing and in some ways a bit of a, not a curse, but in a way it's like jaded, or I don't know, being in the industry it's can be kind of like that. I have a great, one of the best things about working in the music industry is the community of people that you work with across the, especially in America. Like I have these coworkers talking to agencies and managers and, literally all states and all areas of the country. And
Right.
so I think that is really, really wonderful and rich to be able to have that network and tap into it. And so yeah, just a good understanding of like how things work, and um yeah, the connections and the network of people that are in this space is really awesome.
Sure. Absolutely. Completely agree. I'm also, I mean, you can see my speakers behind me.
Yeah,
No self-respecting person that's not a producer has these speakers in their home. So I get where you're coming from with that. Like it's really a beautiful thing to like at the end of the day, despite being discouraged, like the people that you work with are 90% of the time absolutely incredible. And the relationships you
totally.
form like by being in the business end up being like some of the most important of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, being a buyer and working with agents who are selling, and are kind of infamously, notoriously are just out there like sort of car salesmen, like just hustling, trying to sell for the highest, and I'm trying to buy at the lowest. And, you know, it's this real tension of like negotiation. But I've really come to realize, like, for in deal making and in business, a good deal for me is a good deal for you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's like, yeah, that's the sentiment that like it wins. It
Yeah.
totally wins, because if we can strike a deal like that, then it just, it keeps you wanting to come back and keeps you wanting to do business with me. And that's where it really is like a network of friends and community, even though, like, you know, they're rivals in some ways on one hand, but really it's changing that perspective and realizing like we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. And the biggest thing too is like, you just cannot make enemies. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And if you do, you're only hurting yourself, because like, then, you know, you can have this ego and be like, I'm not going to work with that person. But then you're at the end of the day, you're missing out, and it's a disservice to the artist. It's a disservice to the fans, to the people.
Yeah.
And therefore it's a disservice to oneself. So
Yeah.
just get out. Like, that's the thing, is like, yeah, people have upset me and annoyed me, but it's like, get over it. Like, you know, keep moving.
Yeah.
Moving
Well,
on. Yeah.
we're all people, man. Like we're all going to disagree at some point, but let's be honest, most of us are here for the same reason, right? Most of us are here because we love the music and we want to see other people enjoy the music. Like, we want to give people the experience that we felt the first time we stepped onto a dance floor, and that we continue to feel every time we get out there.
Yeah, well said. Totally.
Yeah. I always like to wrap things up with the question, what excites you about the future of dance music?
Beautiful question. Well, in a time where we've been so separated by so many things, but, you know, right now, this global pandemic, I think I'm very excited by the power that music has to bring us together. And I think it's more powerful than ever, and especially in my life and my experience now, for that effect and that the ability, yeah, just really to bring people together through sounds and through music.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Noah, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me today. This has been a really great conversation, and like, this is like my last call before I go on vacation. So it was a really good one to end it on. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was really fun and uplifting. Felt passionate talking to you.
I can feel that from you too. Thank you.
Cool. And
All right.
off the record,
Yeah.
how will this be? Will it be recording, or will it be like how does it
So what
work?
happens is the video gets posted. I do a short intro video, and then the video gets posted on our website and also gets posted on YouTube, and it gets posted as audio on Spotify. And then your DJ mix goes with it.
Yep.
So it's like
sweet.
all one thing. It goes from interview into DJ mix, and then all that gets posted together. And then I also do a written piece to help support it. So there'll be an article like on our website. At the top of it will be the video, and then underneath it will be the article.
Cool. And the video, is it just straight through, or do you edit it a little bit?
It's going to be edited a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool. It's going to be edited a little bit. Yeah, awesome. The edges will be cut off. And then there'll be like Instagram stuff as well that we can send you if you want it. So we'll have like reels for it and everything.
And where are you based? Oh, you said in Oakland.
I'm in Oakland. Yeah. But the rest of the team is in New York.
Okay. And that painting is so awesome, because we were at this little outdoor gathering this last weekend.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out with this really special lady, Nikisha Breeze. She's an amazing African artist, actually. Super powerful, multimedia African woman, just like so awesome. And we were like standing out there, and there was like this amazing storm going on. It was like a rave, kind of all night dance party. Yeah. We were standing out there, and this huge storm came in, and we had to like literally stop the rave, put tarps over everything. And like we were standing there, and then the storm stopped, and we brought it all off, and we started the rave again. But during that time, we were standing there, and we were like, wow, we feel like kind of like bats that are like hanging upside down on the earth. And like that picture reminds me of it, because it's like, you know, there's that person, and if you like flipped it upside down, it's like
Oh,
that person's like rooted into the ground and kind of like in bat position.
You're so right. You're so right. Yeah,
That's funny.
I am not talented at all visually, but my wife painted this, and we just moved into our apartment, and it was in our room before. And she was like, "Where are we going to put this? Where are we going to put this?" And I was like, "We're putting it right there where I can look at it every day, because I need that. I need that. That needs to be here." In my space all the time. So thanks for commenting on that.
It's powerful. Grounding with the tree, rooted, but kind of also like, and it's funny because like we literally are sort of like upside down at times. Like gravity pulls us this way, but also it's like space is that way.
Space is below our heads at some point.
It's awesome, man.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, have a beautiful time in Hawaii, brother.
Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Meet you.
Great to
really
meet you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you ever find yourself in San Francisco, let me know.
Okay, I would love to connect with you. Get some tea or something like that.
Absolutely, that sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace to you, brother.
Peace to you too, man. Thank you so much.